Happy Saturday. It looks like the Fenway Bowl is getting ready to kick off. So I know you guys are excited to watch the most amount of college football games on since 1994, which is absolutely insane. But it's a beautiful day outside, so I may have to skip a couple of the ones that I don't have any wagers on. I have 5 bets today. We'll go over those here in just a little bit, but I did lay 2.5 with North Carolina. If you guys remember, Ralph Michaels said 6-6 bowl teams and what they were able to do as far as favorites. We also had USC last night, so that was nice to go to bed with a loser and wake up a winner. Speaking of winners, we got a star-studded lineup for you guys today. Coming up first, we got VR. You guys know him as Gianni the Greek gambler. We've got Teddy Covers. You guys watch him on Bet On It with me every single week as well. He's going to take some of your college basketball, NFL, college football questions. And then Adam Triggers, bat and cleanup today. He's going to answer any of your last-minute bowl questions as well as hit some hardwood because, well, college basketball season is also underway, even though it's been kind of overshadowed, at least for me, by bowl season. So let's get right into it. VR joins us every single weekend here on WagerTalk's Last Call. It's got to give us a look behind the computer screen, if you will. VR gets some really great information and then gives us some confirmation on whether multiple groups played it, whether they played against each other, and so forth.
A lot of stuff going on today already, Kelly. I fired a little college basketball, a little college football, and of course we got NFL action as well, and a ton of of tennis. Unfortunately, it's not in the back end of the WagerTalk smaller tournament, so I couldn't release them to subscribers. But tomorrow in the Steam Room, will be live. Any of that tennis that comes in, I do share those. Now, real early in this early game, I'm on the North Carolina side. I gave that out to subscribers. I don't even know, 10 days ago, probably at -2. I was really comfortable with it when I was seeing North Carolina line continue to climb. Since then, we've seen some resistance. In fact, today, we're seeing money come in on the Connecticut side after North Carolina was as high as 4.5 at one point in this game. So you do have a little two-way action. Since then, the betting public split pretty much down the middle. So the books don't have too much risk on this game. Looking even in the back end right now with the game kicking off, it looks like it's split, at least from the betting public. Wise guys, like I said, came in early, heavy on the North Carolina side. You saw a little bit of resistance today on Connecticut. I think the Carolina side is the right side. In that next game, real quickly, Boston College and Nebraska. Nebraska got bet before that key number of 3. It got bet through that key number of 3 as well. But you're seeing some of the betting public come in opposite that. They're taking the Boston College side, which has helped limit some of the risk that the books have on Nebraska, which is why you've seen this line drop a little bit, about 0.5 point since its high of about -4. Louisiana versus TCU over. That was the sharp side. Got bet at about 58.5, 59. That's why you're looking at 60 right now. Miami, Florida. I released that to my subscribers on the money line at about -150 up to -160. I said, you guys are good. This one should close about -200. It's almost there. It's about -190 right now. So we placed a good bet on that Miami side. Since then, it's been pretty much all Miami. The publics come in as well. Early money from the betting syndicates was before that key number of 3. They were getting down on Miami. That's why we got down some money line as well. Since then, when you're looking at it at 4, that's what the public's betting. They're betting Miami at -4, a different number. Nothing to report on that Miami Colorado State game. And then NC State and East Carolina over 58 in that game. But I think you should check the weather. I know there was some bad weather expected there. I don't think it's happening. That's why you see this total continue to climb. That's what's going on in today's college bowl games. Again, whether you follow a fade, I hope you do some damage in the college bowls.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, this is a huge slate of games, so we always appreciate VR taking some time during the Steam Room. VR, tell everybody what the Steam Room is if they are new here to WagerTalk's Last Call.
Yeah, it's once a week. At least once a week, I come and we have about 2 hours where we go over our money management approach. What's the best way to maximize profit from the information? And more importantly, I'm accountable. I have to come in and face my subscribers week in and week out, Kelly, whether I win or lose, and we go over those results. In fact, I'm coming off a losing year. I tell you when I win, I tell you when I lose. I've documented every single year since 2015, and this will only be the second losing year over the last 10. hopefully another bounce back year after the last losing year. I think I had a record year, so hopefully I can do the same. But that's what I've got going on. And tomorrow in the steam room, we'll go over each and every NFL game. I'll pass along any props that come in, a lot of those player props, a lot of those first half team totals that I just can't use for subscribers because they're so time sensitive. And of course, we'll be going over every other thing that comes in. College basketball stuff comes in, tennis stuff comes in. And throughout the next year, I'll be there week in and week out for you guys. So make sure you join us. And when you do, jump into the steam room for sure. And real quickly, Kelly, just wanted to share some NFL first half team totals that I touched on. Chargers under 13 first half team total, good up to minus 120. And the Bengals under 14, good up to minus 125. Those are two first half team totals that I got earlier this morning.
Love that. Anything on the hardwood that we should be paying attention to today? B Daddy wants to know the exact same thing. B Daddy, we'll hit that NFL tomorrow. We hit a few things on bet on it this week. Kansas City, winner. Baltimore, winner. Shocker. So that was already good for the week. I guess actually I should take that back. We have 3 NFL games today as well, VR. Anything that you've seen on the hardwood or the grass?
In the NFL, I'll tell you this. I took a bad number on the Patriots. I took 4.5. I'm surprised this one's up to 6. So now I'm hoping to be the product of good luck in that bet. Seeing the first half under in the Chargers does make me feel a little bit better. I also can share that there's steam on the under in the Cardinals Rams, but there'll be more than enough public money the other way. That one's being bet pretty heavy over from the public. So if you do like the under, like the wise guys, you could wait. I think that total should start to climb back up. It was as high as like 49.5, I believe at one point. In college basketball, here's what we have. Game 6-12, San Diego State -4, 4.5, and 5. Game 620, San Jose State. This one got hit multiple groups at +9.5 and +9. 627 over 153, Washington State, Portland. And finally, added games, 306, 505, Coppin State plus the 30 over Georgetown. So far, just about 4 bets. I gave them all to you guys in college basketball. But first day back, a little slow so far, but that'll pick up over the next couple of days. And like Kelly's, I thought something else came in I was going to share with you guys, but that was it. But we'll be covering the NFL tomorrow. A lot to get to for sure.
Absolutely. If you guys are not following VR, Greek_Gambler on Instagram as well as X, Greek_Gambler7 on TikTok. He puts out a ton of great information and free stuff there as well. Joins us every single Saturday and Sunday here on Last Call. And you know what makes VR so successful? That's right. He has all the tools that he needs to become a winning sports bettor, and it greatly improves with line shopping, breaking injury alerts, customizing his own odds screen to the books that he uses the most. Guys, right now, Odds Logic, we're going to give you a free 30 days with me. No credit card required. oddslogic.com/KellyInVegas to get signed up. This is a tool that every sports bettor, whether you're an arbitrage, whether you're sharp, or whether you're a rec bettor, needs at their disposal. So right now we're going to give it to you guys for 30 days for free. It's going to essentially almost get you guys to the Super Bowl. So make sure you check it out. We're going to bring in Teddy Covers here if he's ready. And this beautiful early, look at Teddy. He's got his Circus Survivor hat on. This beautiful early Saturday morning out there on the West Coast. We appreciate all these guys getting up early because I don't miss that at all. One of the perks of living on the East Coast, you get to sleep in on Saturdays, Teddy. No sleep for Teddy Covers, though. We're going to make him start working extra overtime. He does bet on it with me on Wednesdays. No more wager talk today, so he's going to start joining us here on Last Call. That is, as long as he is on the Wager Talk leaderboard. That's how this works, guys. The guys on the leaderboard get the premier spots. Teddy's been crushing. Teddy, we're going to take some questions from the chat. So if you guys have a question, drop it in the chat, and Teddy's going to give you an answer. Teddy, let's go through a couple of the college basketball games, some that are more marquee, because, well, I want to know. And when everybody starts dropping things in the chat, we'll get to your questions. But this is kind of one of those weird games that I like to play teams that I think are better than advertised off a loss, particularly at home. Last Saturday, I was on Mississippi State. My good friend Clint texted to me and said, hey, let's take a look at Mississippi State against this pretty solid Memphis offense, but they do have some faults, and that's they turn the ball over, Teddy. Now they're playing the other Mississippi school, Ole Miss, and I think this is a really good bounce back spot for them.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but so much to unpack here, Kel. Let's start with this. Yeah, I wore this hat specifically for you. I thought you might appreciate it this morning. It's always great to be here early on a Saturday, and 8 a.m. is not early for me in Vegas, unfortunately. Given my world, I had to post college basketball, the first college basketball big ticket of the season, and that went up just after 7 a.m. this morning. So it's not that early here in Vegas just yet, and that's why I love living in Las Vegas, because you can get up early and get your work done, as opposed to back east where you got to sleep in and get your work done afterward, where it doesn't work at that same level of pace. When we talk about Mississippi and Memphis, look, these are two teams that I'm not in any rush to step in front of. All right. And when we're talking about these point spreads, 1.5, note that many of these games are going to come down to 1 or 2 possessions at the end. When you're talking about these tight line games in college basketball, so often you get there, the 4-minute timeout, tied at 70, it's a 1 possession game. And this feels like that. So it's not a game that I'm even close to getting involved with. In my mind, it's a pick-em-ish, and it's priced in the pick-em range. And, a plus 1.5 is not enough to get me to the dog. Minus 1.5 is not enough to get me excited about the favorite. So not a game that I'm involved with today in college basketball, Kelly. But I certainly wouldn't argue with the concept of Memphis and bounce back. All that said, this time of year, this little stretch between Christmas and New Year's, during the holidays, you see more random results than you will throughout most of the campaign. I like to take advantage of that sometimes.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on
that. Where I expect that.
Okay, very, very, and you may have just talked me off of it. We'll see. Matt Hudson wants to know the number 1 game on the board today, in my opinion, at least should be awesome. Gonzaga is, they're on a neutral court or a semi-neutral court to UCLA today. UCLA, Teddy, has been really exciting to watch. Outside of that North Carolina loss last week on a neutral court, this defense is just smothering. I think UCLA is kind of one of those teams that not only has a really good shot to win the Big Ten Conference, but I think go deep into the NCAA tournament. But sometimes when they have these games like North Carolina last week, like Gonzaga this week, do you like to look at teams in these types of situations, or is this another one that's just too big of a marquee game and you're going to pass?
Oh, no, I would only look at UCLA in this game. All right. And I'm with you. I'm going to, when you talk about a coach who maximizes defense, that's what Cronin is known for, and of course, these two teams have played every year, and we've seen really competitive games each of the last 4 seasons, 69-65, 79-76. There was 93-90 in overtime. And the Zags were on the right end of all 3 of those, and they won the 1 year by 20. But certainly it's a game that the Bruins have circled. Certainly it's a game that they're interested in. UCLA is good enough to back in a game like this. You talked about the defensive metrics, and they're real. All right. They lost by a bucket to North Carolina last time out. Perfect. The attention's there. The focus is there. I'm not sold on Gonzaga as being, we've seen St. Mary's slip a little bit this year. I think Gonzaga is I'm not talking about down, but a notch or 2 down from where they've been. And that's been reflected in the point spread. 0-4 ATS their last 4, including a pair of losses as favorites to Kentucky and UConn. So I could only take the Bruins in this one. UCLA was on my short list for today. I did not pull the trigger, but I wouldn't argue with anyone who does.
All right, UCLA +4 currently on Odds Logic. Teddy Covers joining us today. New first timer here on Last Call, hopefully to be joining us in the future as well. He also hangs out with me every single Wednesday on Bet On It. Teddy Covers taking all of your questions here, whether it's college basketball, NFL, or college football for today's slate. We'll be back tomorrow doing regular NFL. Robert wants to know, take on the Notre Dame game. I apologize because I have not been that deep into college basketball. So who the heck is... Oh, does he mean college football? I was going to say, Notre Dame does not play till Tuesday, Georgia Tech. All right, let's go to the New Year's Eve game, Teddy. The New Year's Day game. Notre Dame's playing Georgia, and we've seen this one open at a couple spots. Notre Dame favorite, Notre Dame pick 'em, and then boom, quickly, Georgia up to 1.5 here. I know I'm on in this game, but Robert wants to know who Teddy's on in this game.
So I'm not going to play the game. I have enough people that I respect, like the Georgia side, with Carson Beck no longer as their quarterback, to leave me on the sidelines here. I would lean Notre Dame. I'm a Notre Dame believer. I've been a Notre Dame believer all year. They made me money this year. And I certainly don't think they're going to be outclassed by a Georgia team that has, frankly, underachieved all year. That being said, Georgia's A game is as good as anyone in the country. If they bring it, they'll beat Notre Dame. And I understand why the money has come for Georgia. And the fact that they've switched QBs. Again, a lot of times the backup comes in the game and gets hot, and then the next week, maybe not so much. You'll see teams, ride the momentum of a backup quarterback after the starter gets hurt or the starter gets benched. And that lasts as long as the game lasts. Once the adrenaline's worn off, once the opposing coach has film, oftentimes you don't see the next week's results match up to that initial success. That being said, I don't think there's any downgrade for Georgia at the quarterback position without Beck this week. Again, not a game I'm going to play. I'm involved in 2 of the 4 games. I'm not involved in 2 of the 4, and this is one of the 2 I'm not involved with.
Yeah, I'm on Notre Dame here, Teddy. My real question is this. You mentioned if Georgia brings their A game, can you tell me a game this year where you felt like Georgia truly, besides the Clemson game, besides the second half of the Clemson game? Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. They brought their A game in the second half versus Alabama as well. But truly an entire game where they played up to what I would say was supposed to be Georgia's potential, right? Like, no disrespect to Kirby Smart. Obviously, he's been in the college football playoff and the national championship before. I think that gives them a little bit of nod there. But this Georgia team, I feel like has just, I can't think of the right adjective other than pussyfooted around all season long. They just haven't really came to play. And that's because, well, there's no COVID seniors. There's no 6-year seniors. There's no all of these guys that are now playing in the NFL. I think they still have the talent, but it's almost like Georgia on the front of their jersey somehow makes them exempt from really caring. Does that make sense? Like, you watch some of these games and you're like, do these guys care?
So the Georgia Tech game stood out to me, all right, because they could have laid down in that game. They were done. And they fought and they fought and they fought. And they've done that. And that's why they're here now. So for all the lack of point spread success Georgia has had this year, and again, 4-9 ATS versus an 11-2 ATS Notre Dame team here. So we know who has the bigger betting bandwagon of these 2 teams. And in bowl season, I oftentimes look to support weak point spread teams during the regular season because no one wants to bet them, like Georgia. But that's not the case in here. Georgia's gotten plenty of wise guy support for this game. And I wouldn't say anything negative about Georgia's season, except just that they didn't live up to the extraordinarily high expectations that the markets have for Georgia. They were supposed to be the best team in the country or one of the best teams in the country. They've been very good. They just haven't lived up to the lofty, ridiculously lofty standards that they've been asked to lay by the betting markets. Good game, fascinating game. But from a betting standpoint, I can make cases for both sides, and when I do that, I make case for neither side, and I leave the game alone. And so you watch and learn. You learn a lot more from watching a game that you don't have a bet on than a game that you do. And this is one of those examples where maybe you find something in this game that you can use next time. The winner of these 2, the winner of that game, will play obviously the following week.
Very, very good points by Teddy Covers there. If you guys have a question for Teddy, drop it in the chat. Adam Trigger is going to join us here in about 11 minutes. So if you have a question for Adam, you can drop it there as well. Shin Yang, great show. How do you handicap bowl games, Teddy, given coaches leaving or impacted players leaving via the transfer portal? Hand up yesterday, Teddy. Half the Twitter X universe did not understand why on earth I had Oklahoma -8. People accused me of betting an alternate line. They thought that I was just throwing out non-advantageous lines to prove. So I was like, no, you guys, I bet this 2 weeks ago, like a complete and utter jackass. And then all of Oklahoma's team transferred away. And we talked about this on the college football edition of Bet On It, which you do not join us on, just the NFL edition. But in regards to these bowl games, getting the best of the information as opposed to the best of the number over the last 2, maybe 3 seasons has seemed to work out better. Can you give me your thoughts when handicapping these bowl games and what you prefer to do in this new era of whether it's NIL, transfer portal, coaches going to the league, getting fired, opting out, so forth?
So, excellent question, Shenyang. How do you handicap bowl games? The answer is slowly and carefully. That's my answer. All right. There are so many nuances in the modern bowl era. And you can get a sense for how interested a team is, obviously, based on the transfer portal. But that's not the only thing that will affect those. And certainly when you talk about things that matter, the assistant coaches matter. And so what do? This is what I do. I go slowly, I go methodically, and I dig every quote I can find out of the local papers and the local beat writers. I want to know who's showing up for practice. I want to know which teams are interested. And that's not info you're going to find off statistical profiles. And let me make this very clear. The betting markets, the point spreads are set based on statistical profiles. When you read a lot of the analysis that people write about bowl games, statistical profiles, this team is X in offense and Y in defense and Z in special teams. And in my mind, the stats will not help you win bowl games. What's going to help you win bowl games is finding out which teams are interested. And the only way to find out which teams are interested is to dig deep and do your research in the local papers with the beat writers. So this is the one time a year out of all of them where if you're not reading the local papers, you're missing stuff. We've cashed our last 3 in bowls. We'll see if we cash a 4th one today. And all of my bowl info, and again, the marquee matchup is different. The college football playoff matchups are different. That's a straight handicap. Every other bowl game is not a straight handicap, and you have to read between the lines for the nuance. My advice for a casual bettor is leave the whole thing alone or get on board with one of the WagerTalk experts. I think as a recreational bettor, it's really difficult to gauge who's going to play well and who isn't, unless you want to put the time in. And then obviously, if you're watching this show, you're someone that wants to put the time in. So I appreciate that. But that's something the WagerTalk expert can really help you with. And of course, with that great, Christmas to New Year's special with Holiday 25 at checkout. That's for when it comes to bowls, that's one thing I think the professional does have an edge over the casual bettor. And you talked about conceptually, Kelly, information versus point spread value. And we're hardwired to always say, oh, I missed the best of it. I missed the best. Oh, I can't play that. Or, oh, I'm going to look the other way. We've been trained for our entire careers to think of that way. In bowl season, you can't think that way because the information is more important than the point spread. And there are games that I'm very willing to bet that I haven't gotten the best of the number, and that wouldn't be the case in the regular season just because the info matters. The point spread always matters, but the info matters too. And taking the worst of it has actually been profitable in bowl season over the last 2 or 3 years. This because the info has been so strong on which team's going to show up and which teams aren't.
Trust me, yesterday at a point in time when Navy was a pick'em, I'm like, I can't come back on the other side and I will middle myself. Oklahoma will win the game by 1 through 7 and I will be absolutely and utterly screwed. So I just had to take my beating. And when Oklahoma was up 14-0, I thought, oh, wow. Maybe we're going to catch this -8. You know what I mean? Like maybe this wasn't the wrong side even after all the opt-outs. But it is what it is. And sometimes it's best, as you mentioned, to just leave it alone. But I don't think anybody's middled a single bowl game so far this year. I think that no matter what the move has been, I believe it has been accurate.
So there have been moves that have been wrong, but there haven't been a lot of games landing in the middle.
Correct. Sorry. That's what I was implying.
Yeah. And we're so, again, when I talk about hardwired, I mean, I'm like hardwired. If the line moves 3 points, I'm looking the other way, you know. And in the NFL, you got to do that, and in the NBA, you got to do that, and in bowl season, you can't do that.
Very,
Because when the line moves
very
3
good
points,
point.
it moves 3 points for a reason.
UConn up 3-0 right now with a 4 and out. Let's take Lewis's question. Any total on Colorado? I'm guessing Colorado State versus Miami, Ohio. Let me pull up the current total on. Looks like 41 and a half, 42. Yeah. Right now on the odds logic screen. I don't do a lot with totals, Teddy. But every once in a while, some totals stick out to me. This is a Colorado State team that I was kind of a little bit higher on to start the year. Jay Norvell couldn't really get things going. But if you listen to Ralph Michaels on the college football edition of Bet On It, he talks about MAC schools and how they tend to be undervalued in bowl games. Talk to me about the total if you have an opinion. If not, let's hear what you think about the side.
So total, and we're seeing two-way action on this total right now with 42/41 and a halves across the board. And that total's bounced back between 41 and 42 throughout the course of the last 24 hours. So we have seen a little bit of over money today. We've seen under money earlier in the process. I have not seen the latest weather report for Tucson. I don't think there's any issues there. No issues in Vegas today. Miami, you talk about a bad taste in your mouth. You can think, you think back at what they did in the MAC title game, which was really a complete no-show against Ohio U. Blown off the field. Excuse me. Blown off the field in that contest, really non-competitive. And it wasn't that case throughout the course of the regular season. They were a pretty good football team, but not a team whose offense really worked at all when stepping up against any decent defense. And that certainly concerns me here. It's not like Colorado State's got a defense that was going to wow you with athleticism or any stretch of that imagination. You know, they're not that type of squad. But they're certainly the better of the two teams offensively. So I do think there is some correlation here. Miami is going to cover. They're not going to cover in a game where the two teams are flying up and down the field. So I think Miami does correlate with the under. And Colorado State is the better offensive team of these two. I think if the Rams are going to win and cover, they correlate with the over in this contest. But it's not a game that I've had a strong read on. It's not a game that I'm involved with today. I just have a single college bowl game for today, and that's in the Military Bowl, not in this one.
Oh, the Military Bowl. I like to hear that. Teddy, Titan CT. We got a couple more minutes with Teddy. If you guys have a question for him, drop it in the chat. Do the Rams blow out the Cardinals today? Cardinals have been a really interesting team, Teddy, that I have been really good at times betting on or against and really bad at other times. I did get the Panthers the outright win last week against this team, thinking that maybe they were looking ahead to this divisional rivalry in some form or fashion, you know, one of those open-faced Marco sandwiches. But this Rams team is getting a lot of love. And maybe I just did not have them as highly rated as I should have to start the season. What are your thoughts on this NFC West clash?
So I'll say this, and it's not about patting yourself on the back, but we talked early in the season after the Rams started, I think 1-4. And one of the segments I do on Bet On It is called Stock Watch, just the tip. And I said the time to buy the Rams is now. And obviously they've been machines since, I think, 8-2 their last 10 ball games. That 1-4 start included an ugly, really the worst game of the season that LA's played, an ugly blowout loss in Arizona, a game that was, I think, 41-10, and it wasn't that close. Probably the best game the Cardinals have played all year. Since that time, the two teams' fortunes have shifted. And Arizona last week, I watched that game against Carolina. They left everything on the field. And when you're talking about a team that just got eliminated from the playoffs, that has spent, and when we think about the arc of Arizona's season, all right, Kyler Murray spent the offseason in the trading facility working with his teammates saying, we're going to make the playoffs next year. We're going to make the playoffs next year. That was a big part of the reason why I liked Arizona over their season win total. We got there, 6.5 wins. They got to 7. They don't have to do anything else. But I worry that is a stick a fork in that team done. And the way that the Cardinals embarrassed the Rams the first time, they asked the Rams to win this one by a touchdown in the rematch. The only way I can look here. But the NFL is not college bowls. I missed this number. I didn't grab this number early, and it's 6.5. And in the NFL, when you miss a number, you say, all right, I lean that way, and you don't play the game. And that's exactly what happened here. I lean to the Rams, but I did not pull the trigger at 6.5. And are we seeing sevens now? I would not be surprised at all if we see sevens, but at least some sevens pop up. There's a couple in Vegas now that have popped up, sevens, but I would not be shocked if we see more. The books will certainly be rooting for Arizona tonight, but the books have been rooting for a lot of stuff lately, and they haven't always cashed in.
You're not wrong. All right, last question from Pat. Teddy, your Vandy pick to help me hit a dog in my bowl confidence pool. What dog do you think is live today?
UConn, but that game's already kicked.
Teddy, you can't say UConn.
Maybe Iowa State.
I like Iowa State. I like BYU. Both are on my card today. Okay. All right. Iowa State, BYU. All right, guys. He has Teddy covered, so you can see him every single Wednesday on the NFL edition of Bet on It. Teddy, tell everybody what you got up at WagerTalk.com.
You've been running pretty good of late. With the exception of the NBA is driving me nuts, dude. I've lost the last 2 games where I've had big fourth quarter leads and then lost on buzzer beaters. It happens. That being said, first 5% of big ticket of the season in college hoops goes today. We have a 5% big ticket up in college bowl action. We have bowl action today. We have NFL action today. Just check out my homepage, wt.buzz/TC, and take advantage of that holiday 25 at checkout. Gets you 25% off anything, everything on the site. Doesn't have to be me. Buy anybody. But holiday 25 at checkout, 25% off any packages at WagerTalk.com. And thanks for considering me. I appreciate it. Happy holidays.
Happy New Year, Teddy. We will see you on Tuesday for the NFL edition of Bet on It. I did just get a text from Jeff Sherman. If you guys may have noticed, Art DeCesar was off this morning. He is enjoying time with his family, but we appreciate him making time for us almost every Saturday of the football season. Jeff said the Sharps are on the Chargers -4 and the Cardinals +7. Teddy just mentioned that odds logic screen has some sevens there in Vegas. He said they're also on Nebraska, ULL, BYU, and Louisiana Tech. He said the public bets today are Broncos over 49.5, TCU over 59.5, Miami of Florida over 59, and NC State -7. I will try to send that over to the producers if they want to put that up on the screen as well. But Chargers, Cardinals, Nebraska, ULL, BYU, Louisiana Tech are the sharp plays for today. All right, time for Adam Trigger. If you guys have a question for Adam, drop it in the chat. Adam's been doing pretty well there on the hardwood, and he even hit a nice little bowl game last night, as did I with the Trojans. Adam, I went to bed and I said, all right, I'm done. I've had enough with college bowl season after my Oklahoma -8 bet. That was the probably worst bet I placed all football season in hindsight, at least number-wise, which was rather frustrating. But USC did get it done for us in the Las Vegas Bowl, so I was very happy with that result. What's going on today on the hardwood? What's a couple of these underlying games you want to talk about before we get to the questions? Because nobody really wants to hear about Vermont, but I know you're going to talk about Elon.
Yeah. Listen, college basketball, big missed opportunity to not play the last few days, but they're done with their lull. I don't understand. We have 364 Division I college basketball programs. Why teams wouldn't want to use this stretch to get some exposure is beyond me, but we take a little break. 8 teams go to Hawaii and play on Christmas Day, and then we come back today. It's the last Saturday, Kel, before all hell breaks loose, and there's like 140 games every Saturday from now till March. So only 32 games today, but I have a couple opinions, and I'll start with a game that I played, which is right down the street here in Syracuse, New York, and I'm on Bucknell. I took +13. This was as high as +13.5 this morning. I think it's down to 12.5 some places now, so Bucknell taking a little bit of money. And the reason for this, for me, like Syracuse is just a total disaster right now. This program's a mess. J.J. Starling is out. He's had a hand injury, and he was kind of the one, like, true playmaker on this team that could really bail out. Like, he hid a lot of the bad that is this Syracuse team, and without him, This is just a poorly coached team that can't shoot, Kel. Like, I don't think Autry was the answer for Boeheim as the successor to head coach. Unfortunately, Syracuse is stuck with him probably for this season and next season at least. It's a poorly coached team, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, and that's a problem against a Bucknell team that's pretty good defensively and has a 7-footer and Noah Williamson that's pretty solid at guarding the rim. So you have no Starling to get to the rim, and then you've got Eddie Lampkin down there who's definitely like more physical, but he's going to have to shoot over a 7-footer. And if you've looked at Syracuse in these regional sort of mid-major type games where they host a semi-local team and they're laying a huge number, they almost never cover these. The only one they covered so far this season was the Albany game, and that was just because they could get to the rim at will, something they're not going to be able to do against Bucknell, who has that 7-footer in the paint. There's going to be no one at this game. The Georgetown-Syracuse game, Kelly, had one of the worst attendance for a Georgetown-Syracuse game in the history of the rivalry. Couldn't even get 20,000 to that game. And that was on a Saturday afternoon a couple weeks ago with no football. No one is coming to this game when there's no one at the Dome. Even if there's 14,000 people at the Dome for a basketball game, it feels like no one's there. A lot of the diehard Cuse fans I know went out to the bowl game, so they won't be there. It's just a bad spot, a bad matchup for Syracuse. And I wouldn't be that surprised if Bucknell actually pulled the upset here. But I'm going to take the 13 points. Don't count the Bison out, though, Cal. They might win this game.
Wow. Betting against the hometown team there. Adam, we kind of already touched on the UCLA-Gonzaga game. Taddy and I, if you didn't hear it, both lean towards UCLA. We love that smothering Mick Cronin defense. As he had mentioned, the Zags, 2 straight losses for this team. And it's almost like I feel like it's like one of these. I'm sorry. They had the 2 straight losses to Kentucky, UConn, and then they played Bucknell, Nichols. So 2 teams, in kind of where I would say a get-right spot back at home. Now they're back on a neutral court, or at least a semi-away court. I don't know what to make of this Gonzaga team. I think historically we're used to seeing them run the table, but then they lose to a team named West Virginia in overtime, Kentucky in overtime. Does Mark Few not have this team as dominant in years past, or what's kind of going on there? Are they just living and dying by whether or not their opponent hits threes?
So I don't like UCLA here because it's more of a matchup thing. So a couple reasons. One, I think the number's short. I've got this more like 6.5, 7. So at 4, I do see some value on Gonzaga. 2, I'm not giving UCLA any credit for playing this game in LA. As you said, it's at the Intuit Dome. That's a true neutral, in my opinion. So I don't care that it's around the corner from UCLA. UCLA doesn't have a great basketball fan base. Like it's not like a rabid fan base. Like, so I don't. It's not like, let's say, like when your Wildcats, Kelly, play in Kansas City, and you're still going to kind of get like a really good crowd of Kansas State fans. I don't view UCLA basketball fans as that, so not going to give them any credit for home court. What I do think Gonzaga has done this at times this year that's hurt them, specifically in the UConn game. They play so fast that it's too fast for their own good at times, but it can be effective. And I think it ends up being very effective here. So UCLA, we talk about their defense. Mick Cronin, this is probably a top 5 defense in the country right now. But a big key for their defense is the ability to slow teams down and get you to run half court against them. They love to play slow. UCLA tempo rating is down. It's up in like the 280s, 290s. Gonzaga will play fast, and they might beat UCLA down the court before they can fully set up that defense. So I think that actually benefits Gonzaga here. I did not play this game. I won't have a bet in this game, but I do think the number at 4, there is some value to Gonzaga, and I could see UCLA struggling with Gonzaga's, sort of willingness to go fast and beat them down the floor before they can get their defense set.
All right, guys, if you have a question for Adam, drop it in the chat. I know the Fenway Bowl is underway, and right around the corner, what's the next bowl up? The Nebraska Bowl game with Boston College, the Pinstripe Bowl in 21 minutes. Oh, got a fun slate today. Thoughts on the Miami versus Iowa State game? Adam triggered. Daryl Johnson wants to know, look, I bet against, Mario Cristobal all season long. So I figured why not once more? But if you listen to VR as he started the show, he said, hey, they took Miami money line early. And that was a strong position that they took. Here's the reality with Miami. I don't think it's how you start, it's how you finish. And now, albeit Iowa State dropped a few down the stretch to teams they probably should have beat, but then they had a nice get-right game against my subpar Kansas State Wildcats there in Ames. I think that is kind of a platform to see where they're able to take into this bowl game. I'm honestly shocked we haven't seen more opt-outs out of Miami. I was waiting for that Cam Ward opt-out. I was waiting to hear those chips start to fall, but they really haven't. So give me your thoughts on the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
No, I like Miami. I would not say that if I didn't think Cam Ward was going to play. I think that the entire tone will be set by Cam Ward playing in this game. He really didn't have to. He's going to be a very high NFL draft pick. I will say, like, as someone that's watched, like, the ACC more than any other conference this year, when it comes to college football, I'm really kind of focused on the ACC and everything. You know, that's about all I can handle with how much college basketball is going on. But I watch the ACC closely. Syracuse is, I went to the Syracuse-Miami game, last game of the season. Fantastic game. I really think that Miami would have been the best representative for the conference in the playoff. So it's a little bit unfortunate that they lost that game. A much better team, in my opinion, than Clemson or SMU was this year. Kelly, the stat that goes along with Cristobal and Bowles and Miami and Bowl opt-outs is the fact that they're 2-12 against the spread in their last 14 bowl games. And the reason for that is they underachieve. They get to a bowl that isn't super desirable, and then typically guys don't play. So the fact that, like, to your point, the fact that they're playing here is massive, in my opinion, for Miami.
Time out.
Go ahead.
So, like, K-State went to the Pop-Tarts Bowl last year, and I was like, it's the Pop-Tart Bowl. I ended up being in Nashville for work. My whole family came down and went. It's still the Pop-Tart Bowl. Like, Miami's not even leaving the state of Florida, and albeit there's going to be probably some Miami fans there, but for a team that basically pulled some wins out of their you-know-what, whether that was Cal or whatever, but then to lose to Georgia Tech down the stretch and Syracuse down the stretch, would you not say this is a disappointment? I mean, I feel like this team had college football playoff aspirations.
Well, yeah, it certainly is. But listen, they didn't even get to go to their conference championship game. So I think some of that disappointment wore off. Like, they didn't even get to go play their conference championship game. How about Iowa State, who's a win away from the playoffs and loses to Arizona State? And you could say, like, whatever, Arizona State, nice season. Like, that's ultimately, in my opinion, like, that's a bigger disappointment, in my opinion, than Miami.
Well,
like,
right,
knowing they missed.
They got their doors blown off. And so, like,
right.
Them getting beat in that type of fashion is not ideal.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, that, in my opinion, knowing all you have to do is beat Arizona State to get to this point in the playoffs and then getting your teeth kicked in is more disappointing, in my opinion. The other thing here that I think is going to really benefit Miami, they are very solid at running the ball, and Cam Ward is a tremendous playmaker. Iowa State really doesn't have a great pass rush. And if they don't get to Cam Ward and Miami gets a little bit going in the run game, I think they could run Iowa State off the field. I really wish I was one of those people that took Miami on the money line. I was not. I don't know if I can justify, like, laying 3.5 or 4. But my numbers, if everything was equal, everyone was playing on a neutral field regular season, I make this more like 7. I don't know. I've done well picking off these bowl games, like, sort of day of. So it's certainly something I'm considering. Haven't bet it yet, but I lean toward Miami.
Shout out to all of you guys hanging out with us, not watching the Fenway Bowl. I probably should have lobbied to start the show an hour earlier, but then the guys on the West Coast really would have hated me with a 7 a.m. start time. Adam Trigger joining us here from WagerTalk.com. If you guys want to talk some college basketball, he is a wealth of knowledge, but sounds like everybody wants to talk bowl games. Brandon Bensing, who is a DPT, I think that's a physical therapist. Thank you for keeping me unbroken. All jokes aside, Adam, I laid 2.5 with Nebraska very early on. This was a spot where I thought the Cornhuskers could capitalize. Boston College up to a 3.5-point underdog on the odds logic screen. Break down the Children of the Corn versus the Fighting Bill O'Briens.
Yeah, Kelly, this is one I wish I laid 2.5 with you. Like my strategy for bowl season, and the reason I've only, I'm 3-1. I've only made 4 plays so far. But I'm kind of just like I'm treating it a lot like preseason football, where like they're all exhibition games a lot without the same players that were playing during the regular season, and I'm really just kind of like waiting for the overreaction, trying to play back against it. That's been my strategy. But like if I was treating this like I was in years past, I would have 1,000% just like taken that Nebraska -2.5. I still like it -3.5. Not something that I gave out to clients, but just knowing quite a bit about this Boston College team this year, I don't think these two teams are even close. My number, again, going back to numbers on a neutral, if this were a regular season game, I have Nebraska -8. So I can't argue with you there. This feels like two teams that just are not like equals. I have Nebraska much better than BC. And have you seen the ACC's record in these bowl games, Kel?
I was just getting ready. I literally just saw Brad Power's tweet. Look at let's talk about this tweet. Okay, so Brad Powers tweeted about an hour ago. The ACC is now 0-6 against the spread this bowl season, failing to cover by 8.1 points per game.
Well, listen, if you bet Syracuse for the entire week plus you had to bet Syracuse, you would have covered. Fair. You shouldn't have been taking 18.5 there. But yeah, it's been bad for the conference.
I just thought that was wild. I mean, I have the only ACC team. Well, I bet 2. I bet North Carolina today and NC State. I have 2.5 on North Carolina and 5 on NC State. So look, it is what it is. But I bet against the other 2 with Nebraska and Iowa State. All right, guys, we've got about 14 minutes until the Pinstripe Bowl kicks off, and I want to go spend the entire Saturday on my couch enjoying 8 college football games. But again, shout out to you guys hanging out with us here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, B Daddy has a college basketball question for you. Fresno State versus UNLV. UNLV is 16.5-point favorites here. He likes Fresno State in the points because he does not trust the running Rebels.
Yeah, it's insane for UNLV to be favored by that much against anyone. Like that's pretty much a rule of thumb this year, in my opinion. Like UNLV is a big favorite. I think you could fade them every time. This roster is very average. Dedan Thomas Jr. is awesome, but the roster overall is just a very average mix of players. They lose like arguably their 3 best defensive players from last year. So like last year you had the Boone brothers, the one that transferred over from Oklahoma State. Was an elite rim defender. His brother that came from Pacific was an above average player. And then I think it was Martinez. I always forget the other guy that they lost, but a really good on-ball defender that they don't have anymore. So it's essentially Dedan Thomas in a mix of very average players. He's the type of guy that can take over a game. So like, I talked about UNLV the other day when they were going on the road to play Dayton as a big underdog. And I said, well, you got to be, still a dangerous team with Thomas. But as a huge favorite, you absolutely can't lay 17 with this team. So Fresno or pass for me too.
All right. Any more questions in the chat? We will take them. If not, we're going to go watch college football and college basketball all day. Adam, I'll let you leave with this. Give me a game that is an under the radar spot that you think that our loyal listeners need to be betting on today.
All right, under the radar spot, just because I wore the shirt. I think I'll talk about Elon Marshall real quick. Elon has one of their best players that left the East Tennessee State game. This would be TK Simpkins. Left the East Tennessee State game. He was on crutches. He didn't play against Greensboro. He has a twin brother also on the team named TJ who will just slide into the starting lineup. I think that hurts Elon much more on the offensive end than the defensive end, since TJ, who's been playing the 6-man role, has come off the bench, and he's really the better of the 2 defenders. They've got a 7'4" center named Matthew Van Komen, who is become an elite rim defender, rebounder for this team. Elon comes into today, I think 4th nationally in like total rebounds. They play this really solid matchup zone. And they're really able to like extend it past the 3-point line because Van Komen is so good at, cleaning up anything in the paint and blocking the rim. That's a real issue for Marshall, in my opinion, doing anything offensively, because this is a team that A, wants to play fast. Elon is going to play slow and pack in that zone. And B, Marshall takes a lot of bad shots, specifically from 3. Elon really good at pushing you out past the 3-point line and forcing you into tough threes. And Marshall's, I think they're shooting like 29% as a team from three. It's well outside the top 300. TK Simpkins is the better offensive player of the two. So it's a blow to Elon on the offensive end, which is why I think under makes a lot of sense here. This was 145.5 when it opened. I think it's still there. I would be shocked if there's a ton of scoring in this one. So we'll say under Marshall Elon for an under the radar play.
All right. He is Adam Trigger. He has a no longer the golf ball. It's Adam Trigger WP on all your social channels. He does a great job over on TikTok as well. Adam, let everybody know what they can find from you at WagerTalk.com and anything else you'd like to leave them with.
Yeah, so for today, college basketball, I'm just putting everything on the same package. 2 4% plays locked in so far. It's not a very big slate, so that might be it. But if I add anything else, it'll go on there. 5% NFL play tomorrow. I've hit 4 in a row if you don't count. So the last 5, 4-0-1 technically, since I pushed one of the bets, but still on a nice run with 5% football plays. We've got one of them tomorrow, and I think, Kelly, the coupon code HOLIDAY25 still works site-wide for anyone, any package. So whether it's me or someone else, check that out because it's good through the 31st.
Love it. HOLIDAY25. Good through New Year's Eve on WagerTalk.com. All right, guys, we will see you back here tomorrow. Let me see who's going to be on the star-studded lineup for tomorrow. Oh, our good friend John Murray is going to be joining us. Of course, VR, Gianni the Greek, and Steve Merrill, of course, because he's been crushing that NFL slate. Guys, thank you for hanging out with us here on Wager Talk's Last Call, and we'll see you tomorrow.